Corey's on his way, so he'll be here shortly. So let's call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. Myself and Mr. Van Dusen are present. And why don't we stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I know we have several citizens here. Is there anybody that has any concerns that are not currently on the agenda?
Is the dog park on the agenda?
The dog park is on the agenda. Do you want to come up? If you can come up here and say your name and address for the record, please.
Oh.
Tony Wade, 901 Mill Road. I have a problem with spraying weed killer in the playground areas. Are you people aware of that?
I think I heard something on that, but I don't know. With the spraying of weed in the playground?
Yes, that is correct.
I know the administration probably went through and sprayed weed in the playground areas, but I don't know if there's anything that you have to comment on that potentially.
I do know that they post it when they go to spray, and they place signage up so that people are aware that it's been sprayed. Our challenge is to find a time when there's not somebody in the park, and then when it's not in the middle of the night, so to speak, so that the application can dry. And then they remove the signage and or barricades, because sometimes they put up cones once the application is dry, and then it's safe to resume play on that surface.
So we do barricade them off at that point?
My understanding is we put signs up letting them know that we've sprayed, and then sometimes we also add cones depending on the size of the area. With the upcoming inclusive playgrounds coming up to those 3 parks, that's going to eliminate the need to spray, because it's mainly in the mulch areas where we have the difficulty. And so with the port-in-place rubber surfaces, that's going to eliminate that need, so that'll cut that down drastically.
What parks do we know that were sprayed?
I do believe we spray all of them.
Okay.
Except, I will say, the park at River, because of the surface.
Jonathan? I live in Three Meadows Park. The sign was located at the far end of the playground. Doesn't tell the time, just set a date. Now, what if a kid shows up within that time frame? We're supposed to be safe.
Do we know the safety of?
And it's not barricaded off. I don't know where that came from. And my neighbor
I
took
did not
her
say it was
kids.
barricaded. I said in some areas they use cones because of the size of the area.
My neighbor took her kids to Woodland, and they were spraying while her kids were there at noon.
Are you accusing me of something?
No, I'm just
I'm just
asking
not
what you
sure.
think of that.
I have no thoughts on that. I'm hearing it for the first time.
Is the city doing it or a contractor?
I'll have to check with their service director. I know some areas we contract out depending on the size, and some areas we do in-house.
Is there a way that we might be able to find out at the next committee meeting the health factors, the concerns, the time it takes for it to evaporate, the number of signs that are placed? If we're not appropriately notifying and putting the information out there, I think it's important that we look into that.
I will ask our service director to put that together.
Just things like, is it wet, is it dry, what's the time of influence, and just the general.
Sure, I'll get the MSDS sheets.
One other thing. When are we going to get the fence around the playground at Three Meadows?
That is part of the ARPA funds,
We
and
have a purchase order in, and we are waiting on the contractor.
that is on its way. We talked about that last meeting, and that it was being ordered. And
It's been ordered.
Okay. We're just waiting for it to come in at this point, so
We're waiting on the contractor.
It's going to be this year?
hopefully. We
Can't make
have
any promises.
several playgrounds are going to be in, and I believe the last conversation I've had with Bridget, our city administrator as well, is that 1 or 2 of them may not happen this year, just
Correct.
depending on getting the supplies, and we all know how the supply chain issues going right now.
Yeah, and the ported place, rubber surface has to be ported at above certain temperatures. So with it starting to cool off, it may not be possible to pour those. So we're hoping to get one done this year.
In a perfect world, I would have them out myself, but
Well, that's all I have, and I think the spread on the playground is pretty serious.
and we'll definitely get some more information on that. So I appreciate you bringing everything up to the
A
attention.
little
of the
research
science.
says it dissipates within an hour, but it could take 18 to 20 hours. So that's all I have.
No, I appreciate bringing it to our attention. We'll find out more information, so thank you. Any other citizen concerns, things that are not on the agenda? Hearing none, we do have the meeting minutes to approve. There's no objections. I'll consider those approved.
Approved action.
Okay. And the next item on the agenda is going to be the change order for Rotary Park parking lots. And I'll pass the mic over to Ms. Gibbon.
Thank you. And I have for you legislation, summary legislation, and an attachment. And I apologize, our city engineer would have been here tonight, but he could not contact me to verify that because I was in a meeting, so he normally would be here for this. But essentially, council several months ago passed a resolution awarding a contract for $292,000 and some change with a 10% contingency. During the course of this project, when they were milling off the original course of asphalt, they were taking about 1.5 inches of asphalt off. And what they discovered is that the depth of the asphalt in Rotary Park is not consistent across the parking lot. There were areas that actually, when milling off the 1.5 inches of asphalt, revealed stone, the stone base. There were some areas that were so thin with asphalt that the asphalt was actually popping up and crumbling. And then there was many areas that the asphalt seemed to be at the right depth, remaining depth. So what the contractor had to go back do is put in something like a tack coat, skim coat of asphalt to bring it all up to the right level and depth, and then put the top course on. So obviously that required additional labor and asphalt itself. And if you look at the exhibit, you'll see that Brian put together, a city engineer. If you actually go down to the last column and the last grouping, down here you'll see the additional costs of asphalt, some drive apron, traffic control, and some subcompaction that had to be done. That was a total of $64,000 in additional dollars. And when you come down to his map over here, he shows that they have a contingency of 10%. We know that we needed to add we needed to add trees into the parking lot islands, and we planned on doing that out of the project funds and not pay a markup through the contractor. We were going to do that ourselves. And then he's asking for an additional $5,000 of contingency until the project gets closed out, not that he foresees anything. But that total was $47,000, and we had $29,000 contingency, leaving a difference of $18,000. So that is his request to finalize the actual asphalt, and then again to allow us to purchase trees for the tree islands with a local vendor, plant them ourselves, and then a $5,000 contingency if necessary. And then obviously if we would use that contingency, we would report back to the committee.
Okay, so that 5,000 is almost like another built-in 10%.
Correct, because that project is very close to wrapping up. Again, he doesn't foresee anything, but just in case, so that way we have timeliness in the we're applying for the contractor.
Who was the,
I think it's Dennis Paving. No, Browning.
that's
Browning.
who's doing it now. Do we know who did I guess one of the things that concerns me is taking off and it's not as thick as it should have been. Have we looked at the original contractor for that project?
I do not have the original contract, and the engineer so far has not been able to find any of the original plans for this parking lot.
Okay.
So he's looked through the plans that he was bequeathed by the last city engineer and has yet to find them, to know who actually performed the work or put the plans together and what the specifications were. So the good news is all that is fixed. And again, I think their parking lot has probably been in for 20 years.
Okay, so I guess from this, are we creating a spreadsheet of the contractors and the contract pricing, like as we go, so that we have a reference point? So say we come back and down, 10 years down the line, we need to do some work on this, and we go through and we see something that wasn't done the way it should have been done, just so we can kind of keep a note of the contractors and the work that
The
we're
city
actually
engineer actually has a file for each project. The city engineer has a file for each project. So he's keeping all documentation such as this and any notes, and the final plans will also be placed in there. And I believe he's also digitizing them so that they're available for future reference.
Okay, because that would be something I would hope we do, so that we can, because some of these projects, I mean, we're spending a considerable amount of money to do this, and you don't necessarily know that they didn't do it well until down the line, right? And we see that on some of our streets and stuff. So if we could make sure that we have a reference point to look back on and say, hey, when you said get us on
Growl.
When Growl did this back in 2022, they didn't do it the way they should. They missed the mark on X, Y, and Z.
And we also have
Take that into consideration for who we do business.
True, and we also have our construction inspector out there as well.
That's what I was going to ask. We hired
site.
this
We actually-
specifically to do that.
We used our own in-house construction inspector, Mark Hayfield. So he was out there on this project when they were milling and when they were actually laying asphalt.
And that's a good audit for that
Yes.
person as well, down the line.
Yeah, so he
But
verifies.
I know we had
quantities.
issues on White Road, and we still are seeing those issues. But that was one of the reasons why we really need to have someone internally versus going externally.
Yes, keeping it in-house.
How much more is left on the project?
Like I said, not much. I think they might have to do some touch-up work on seating. And I want to say that they were still doing some work at the end towards the Y.
The only reason I asked is I'm just wondering, do we really need to have the additional 5,000 contingency in there or not?
And again, it's up to this committee and council.
If it's that close to being done, is that something?
He felt like it was very close. And again, he didn't foresee anything happening, but he just was concerned about having to come back if necessary. But again, we can certainly do that. That's not a problem.
I don't know what the rest of the committee's feelings are on that, or thoughts are.
Well, that's, the 5,000 is based on the 47.
The 5,000 is just an additional allocation based on a request by the city engineer.
That's included 47.
It's part of the 47,000, but a just in case, since the original just in case is getting used.
Yeah, because
I mean, the materials would be the question that would move this.
The big item is the asphalt and the concrete,
Right.
and all that work is complete, I believe.
Yeah, I'm kind of having. I don't want to give you guys too hard of a time because I don't know exactly
No,
everything that
it's-
goes into here, but we're
it's-
17%, I think, off of what the original contract price was, which, and this doesn't happen very often, so I'm happy with that, but
Right.
that's a big margin on a
And again,
project.
based on what was revealed when we
Yeah.
stripped the asphalt out.
Part of me wonders, do we just hold off on doing the 5,000 contingency on the final part of this and just pass it without that? I don't know.
I wouldn't mind keeping a pulse on this.
Just like something else.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
I don't think they will spend the 5,000. I think that they have to come back for 3,000. So I think we should keep an eye on it. But they're not going to spend that 5,000 unless they need to. That's in my opinion.
Do we want to pass it, we can pass it with the 5,000 with the contingency that they bring back the final numbers back?
Well, I hope they do anyway.
Yes, we can certainly.
Yeah, I'm fine with Barry's. Just please report at the next meeting when this project's done. Let's do a recap
Well,
on what else.
the history of this park, and it doesn't seem like it's been 20 years, but it's been underfunded because it was kind of a Rotary funded thing. And I don't know when it transitioned.
And I
So-
was talking to the engineer about that. I don't know who actually installed the parking lot. It may have been Rotary's contractor
I almost think it may have
that
been Rotary.
had installed
I just have that
parking
feeling,
lot.
because I can't imagine the city.
Because I think some amount of the infrastructure was built and then it was turned over to the city, I think, to finish, is the history. I recall.
I would guess he might agree.
So yeah, that may be why the city engineer can't find any plans, because we actually didn't do the work, or contracted work out.
We talked in the last meeting about the architect who's no longer in Rotary anymore, who ran most of this, and that's why we're doing the pickleball courts through the city now versus having Rotary run the whole thing show.
They look great, by the way.
Yeah, the progress looks
Let's get there.
awesome. And whoever prepares this, thank you.
Right.
These, like, this is what this is a great format for keeping track of the
Yes,
information that we should have available.
And if the
So,
committee forwards this on as is, I will make sure in an email that I ask the city engineer to document any utilization of $5,000 so that we can report back at the next recreation committee closest to that event taking place.
yeah,
Couple with
I'm fine with that. I'd like,
Yes.
please pass along that this is
I will
awesome,
pass
because
along
this
the
will make it so our budgeting is far more effective in the future than the 17% that we're off on this one, which is awesome.
So that will be 3-0 recommending that moving forward. Next item is to review the dog park survey, which I believe many of you are here for. So, Ms. Cabot, I'll pass this over to you as well.
Oh, I don't have one with that. Oh, no, I'm good.
You got it.
So, Councilman Smith asked to have this discussion. So what I did is I asked our public information officer who put together the survey at the request of the committee and have him put together the analytics. I think this was emailed out, I think, to all the city council shortly after the close of the survey period. And again, it kind of recaps for those in the audience, indicates how many people actually took the survey, which was a little over 1,200. About 950 of those indicated that they have a dog. 543 indicate that they walk their dog daily. 109 indicated that they walk their dog weekly. And the question was asked, if the city were to add a dog park, would you take your dog there? And we had 614 responses of yes, 163 of no, 179 of maybe. At least that responded to that question. And question 6 asked if the city is considering a park for either Three Meadows, Bicentennial, or Orleans, which is shown on a map that was as part of the survey. Which one would you most be in favor of? It was all very close, with option A being Three Meadows at 302 responses, positive responses. Option B was Bicentennial at 375 positive responses. And Orleans Park was option C with 378 positive responses, and 137 had no preference. Then the question was asked based on the cost of each of the estimated cost of those improvements, based on conversations with our engineer and a group of internal staff members. Which park would you consider based on those estimated costs? And it did change up considerably, with option A being still being Three Meadows, but that went down to 292 positive responses. Option B, a Bicentennial, increased to 495 positive responses. And option C of Orleans Park decreased as well as Three Meadows, and the responses for positive were 257, and there was still 148 no preferences. And then there was an area where you could explain your choices, and there were a variety of responses, anywhere from cost, liking the option that cost the least, like the location. Some said that like Bicentennial was too small. Some were concerned about neighborhoods. Some were concerned about the responsibility of dog owners. So there were a variety of responses to that question. And I think I can actually have the PIO print out every single one of those responses. And
We were able to review that.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
the email you sent,
Oh,
so I was
good.
able to, yeah.
I mean, I don't intend any action here tonight, but.
No, I don't, and I think it's important to put it, you can kind of see from the, when we add in the cost factor, I mean, number 8 is kind of a tough question, right? Because you just have a bunch of people that are looking at a price and not taking in the human factor, which I think we know that there is a human factor in this. So there, while if we were talking dollars and cents, we're really not factoring in people's quiet enjoyment of their own residence.
If I was to lean it anywhere, I would like to wait and see what this Orleans Master Park plan is going to be anyways. I think that, I mean, looking at everything was pretty split when it came down to question 6 before cost became a factor. And if that's the case, all being the same with all the work we're putting in Orleans, I would just lean towards Orleans as being the if we were to put something in.
I'm of the same. I've tried to, I know I advocated for bicentennial to be added to this just for the question here, but I also did not necessarily, that was not my motive.
We know that's
So,
not your opinion.
so I wanted more options here. But I will say what I had noticed after we had our last meeting, I tried to equate it to my own house. So I live out in the sanctuary, and there's a lot of construction. But I also know that construction is going to end. So while the houses are being built near me at 7 a.m., I don't necessarily like that. I'm kind of a late riser compared to most people. Yeah. Well, the kids, they leave me alone because then they can get the snacks out of the cabinet while I'm asleep. But I don't know that I would like noise in the mornings at my house. That's never going to go away. So that's kind of how I relate to it. I think it's kind of shifted my thoughts on the human cost of it. It's something we definitely need to factor in. So
I think that it was important to go through this process anyways, just to get an idea of what the community was thinking and to hear back the feedback. For those out there, we get this probably at least once or twice a year. We'll have someone reach out to us wanting us to look into this, and we wanted to make sure that we could get some feedback from the community on this as well. So I appreciate everyone coming out and talking on this. I think that Orleans is probably going to make the most sense if we do this, but I don't see it happening this immediately. We still want to see what this master plan is going to look like and go from there, but I don't see any immediate movement or quick movement on it. Do you want to come up and say something, Jackie?
So it doesn't give me like immediate comfort.
I don't.
If
you don't mind saying your name and
No,
address.
Jackie Kyle, 235 Southwood Drive in Perrysburg.
We know you, but.
Yeah, I know. I hear what you're saying that, this Orleans Grand Plan. I think the survey was very skewed, and you can see that with the question with the dollar amount. And I kind of figured that was going to be people, oh, sure, stick it at Bicentennial, it's the cheapest. I think the underlying question is, do we need a dog park? I mean, I want, at this point, I would love to see Bicentennial and Three Meadows taken off and just officially say, if we're going to do it, we're going to put it into the grand plan at Orleans Park, and we want to remove these two from the list. But then when you get to that point, what are the taxpayers going to be asked at that point? Are we going to be asked, do we need it? Do you want it? Is there going to be something on a ballot? And are people going to be given the option if we want our tax dollars going for a dog park and all those costs associated with it? No animal control officer, the increased, responses by our police and EMS, whether it's in a neighborhood or not, there's going to be problems. My thoughts on dog parks. They're,
I was just driving down the other day, saw someone walking with their dog off a leash.
Yeah, so I don't know, I plan on coming to the meetings, if this isn't going to be talked about for a while, then I don't, we don't need to be here, but, I think that the underlying question is, do we need it? When we get to that point, is there going to be another question asked?
So what will most likely happen with the master plan for Orleans is once things get settled in, there's going to be a public input on that actual master plan. I don't want to say, I think before I even got in council, and was it 10 years ago? Does that sound right? When the big amusement park went up about
Yes, it was the summer of 20.
Yeah, or it looked like it had an amphitheater on Riverside and the zip line and all that.
Right.
They didn't. It's going to be a similar presentation. It's not going to be as grandiose as that.
Okay.
But it's more something to take back. I know the city has been working and talking with the Toledo Metro Parks as well. They've been in communication to see what works, what doesn't work, and then bring the whole plan out to the community as an input as well. We still have that being discussed in practice as well, and we're still having some other conversations within the city, and hopefully we will.
So what are the next steps as far as being assured that it's not going to happen at Three Meadows in Bicentennial?
I don't have any intent, I don't know.
I mean, is there like a recommendation process and then
So
you
I
take
think
it off
what-
the list?
I
or-
think what he's referring to is, you're essentially hearing us saying this is getting tabled until we talk about Orleans Park.
Okay.
And adopt that master plan and have that discussion.
Okay,
At least that's what I'm understanding from him.
I had no intention of bringing forward in Bicentennial or Three Meadows.
so at this point, nothing will be going forward until the grand plan is discussed on Orleans Park?
My focus is going to be having a conversation with Orleans Park moving forward.
Okay,
And there's not going to be a recommendation to come out with those two parks at this point.
That would be
At least mine.
I have no desire to put it in those two
Okay.
locations anymore.
And from my perspective, and I love your questions, I think they're very appropriate.
thank you.
When that Orleans Park master plan gets introduced, there will be an area designated, but that doesn't mean that it gets completed. And I think the questions you're asking, how do we go about finding out the level of public interest and spending taxpayer dollars on this, is very appropriate.
And I would be curious, I meant to find out before tonight's meeting, and I don't know if the auditor's office would supply that information. I'm interested in how many licensed dog owners we have in the city of Perrysburg, and the demographic of where those people are and where the request is coming from. If it's from single homeowners, if it's from apartment complexes, condo owners. And I know a lot of those complexes have places already in place for owners to be able to take their dogs. And I think our underlying concern mainly is bringing it to a neighborhood. You know, it's not going to affect me or anyone else using those parks if it's not there. Orleans Park, you know, it could affect people, but it's not in a neighborhood. And it certainly wouldn't affect me walking my dog daily, having to worry about someone's dog off leash, you know, exiting the dog park and having something bad happen. So, I mean, I think that's our main concern, but I think it does need to be addressed if the taxpayers should be responsible for it or want to fund it.
And with the Orleans Park plan, I mean, there's even dollars set aside to even put that together yet. It's more of, let's take this out, let's bring it to the public. I don't know if it's going to be grant funding. I don't know if it's going to be something that we'll be funding ourselves. I'm still not certain how that whole process is going to be
Okay.
brought out at that point, but our city
I can
administrator.
certainly say in this upcoming proposed budget, there are no funds in the budget for a dog park based on our need to balance the operational budget as we stand today.
That's one thing, with some conversation I had with our city administrators, with the inflation that we're all seeing in the cost increases, there are certain things that we thought that we may be looking at that aren't going to be in the budget, primarily due to those inflationary pressures that we're experiencing. And I don't think, I would foresee that potentially being in there right now,
Okay.
especially if we have this master plan going for Orleans, and that could be.
So obviously you had enough people ask for it that had
We want-
put out the interest and see
Over the-
what's there.
Yeah, so the way I would describe it is you're part of the experiment in real time of trying to get people aware of projects that are on the horizon in a way that we've never done before. To where, you know, before we are ever at a council meeting, we have a whole crowd of people that are like, hey, what's going on with the water tower? You know, we're putting this out there. We're putting this out there early so you know that there's an interest that this project may be on the horizon and here's where we're looking, and try to get the community involved in some of those decisions in a new creative way. This happens to be the first one we put out there, so we're trying to figure out, hey, is this a need that we want to act on now, or is this one, you know, let's pause it, let's recalibrate, see if we're going to actually act on this, or where would it go?
Okay.
We'll have it here now than just before we actually go to pass.
Because
Yeah.
that's what happens sometimes, is people don't even know these
Right.
projects are happening, and then we get a packed house, and hey, you know, we're somewhat isolated, and there's the people we talk to, and we try to reach out to the community.
Right.
But sometimes we're off the mark on some things.
So this is the first time we've done this, and frankly, 1,200 responses is statistically insignificant. So hopefully people become more accustomed to feedback for these other endeavors we
Right,
take.
right. And I think you guys did a good job of getting it out there. But, you know, it was word of mouth by myself and other people, a couple of them that are here tonight, just talking to people and making them aware. Did you know this was going on? You know, even people that live along Bicentennial weren't even aware that that was happening. You know, that was being considered.
Keep an eye on us.
Yeah, and we're hopeful that, you know, down the line, we will also spark similar interest in the same citizens or other citizens, like, hey, did you know this is going on? Because
Right.
we want real-time opinions.
Right. So, well, I appreciate, you guys taking into consideration. I appreciate that it's not just something that's going forward without a lot of thought being put into it. So that's all I have to say, but I think there's a couple people here tonight that haven't had a chance to speak yet, so.
If anybody else would like to come up and talk about this issue?
If I may, I just want to paraphrase.
Yeah, if you want to come up and do you state your name and address for the record, though, please?
Vicki Powell, 871 Bridgeton Lane. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So right now, it's being tabled due to budget concerns. And if it is escalated again, Three Meadows and Bicentennial are on the table.
So I will always stipulate it, because keep in mind, we're elected, so the people that are in these chairs can change. That's kind of where I stand is, hey, I've heard from the people from Three Meadows and Bicentennial, and I appreciate where they're coming from, and we have an alternative option that's away from housing. So you won't see me change my opinion on that.
That's it for as long as I'm here. I think Orleans is going to make the most sense once we get through that master plan.
And that's still one of the questions. Yeah.
I won't make you listen to my whole spiel then, so I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anybody else?
I think I'd go one step further and say we don't need a dog park. You can go in any park in the city and take your dog and enjoy it. Deborah Bourne, 125 East Front Street, Perrysburg. And I think that it's an enormous amount of wasted money that we do not need to be spending on a dog park. So thank you, Ms. Cabot, for stating that earlier. I do not think that we should be looking at developing Orleans Park when we have a fire department and a police department who have needs, and I think those need to be addressed as well as the roads. Thank you.
I just want to be clear, a dog park is not a done deal by any means. I think that's the next question, whether to have one or not.
I will add that I believe I saw in Blade, I think Mr. Smith was interviewed, stating that it was going to happen and seeing how big it was and where it was going to be, essentially. That was a few months back.
Look for my cap quotes on that, so I would have said that, but,
Yeah,
but thank you.
you're welcome. All right.
Hi, Mindy McGrail, 288 Margaret Place, Perrysburg. I happen to live right on the path at Bicentennial Park. I mean, 2 feet from my backyard is people all the time. And I'm just appreciate everything you're doing, because our park is very small, and I've seen, even when strangers come in the park, it's kind of like our backyard. So I just don't think there's room for anything like that. And I've had experience with dog parks as well. I have a friend who lost a dog at a dog park, so I just don't even know if we need a dog park. But I just wanted to make myself, let you know how much I appreciate everything you're doing, and don't think it's a really good idea. And I really don't want them in my backyard, and it literally would be my backyard. So these people walk their dogs behind my backyard every day, and we're friends and everything. It's different when strangers come in, and there's no parking there either. So, anyway, thank you.
Wait for the playground to get done back there. That would be real nice.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anyone else have any?
Joyce Williams, 14 Woodview Drive, Perrysburg, the Hawksbridge condominiums. I'm here with the Three Meadows. I'm agreeing with most of their statements, as far as I don't think we need a dog park in this economy. If you have a dog, you can walk your dog. Don't expect other people to provide exercise for your dog. That's your problem. I think a lot of people at Three Meadows were concerned about it because it's a bigger residential area. And we certainly don't want to see a dog park across the street from the playground. I think that's not appropriate, or the shelter house. And I don't think there's enough room for parking either. So I agree with all these. I don't think I can introduce anything different, but I think they've covered most of the bases. Okay, so it's tabled, right?
Nothing's going to happen tonight, so I don't think anything's going to happen in the near future.
Yeah, it was number of action item tonight. It's more.
It's what?
It was more of a discussion on the actual results than anything else. There wasn't going to be any plans, because if we were to move forward, we would still have to find a budget, creating a budget. There's nothing in this budget. As Ms. Cabot stated, most likely not going to be anything in the future budget, but it's something that we at least want to get that out there to have that conversation with the community.
There's enough people that ask us about that part, that it's about time to have the
Let's
conversation.
put it in their
too.
neighborhood.
Yeah, and you might be absolutely right. It's interesting, actually, some of the people, there would be people in Three Meadows that very much want a dog park.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a vast majority, what I realized from looking at the responses, a vast majority don't want to do in their neighborhoods. There's very few that do.
Yeah.
But there are. It's kind of interesting, that anomaly.
Yeah, yeah.
But thank you very much for
Okay.
coming.
Are you going to publish those results from the survey?
I can ask our PIO how she can post that.
I think this should be public record
Yeah,
anyway.
it's not a question of public record, it's just, I think functionally how we do that on our website or social media.
So we'll make sure you get that out there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The one thing I find interesting is that we haven't had one person at any of the meetings I've been at that are in support of the dog park.
We had
We had an older lady that said that she
Yeah.
thought that they could be good, but there wasn't any person coming.
Ruth,
saying-
who was there, it has been someone that's come in the past asking for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So she's someone that has brought it up a few
Okay.
times.
And traditionally, we, not to,
People don't show up to support it.
Yes.
Okay.
you see quite a fallout from that.
But no, I appreciate everything. Jackie, I appreciate the phone calls, conversations, and emails that we've had as
And I
well.
appreciate
Definitely
you
been
being willing to take my phone calls and emails and questions.
Well, always. So, but if there's nothing else, no one else, we'll move on the agenda, if that's all right. The next item is our summer rec programs. Those you might be interested in this.
Additional data.
So this is a result of our 2022 summer rec program review and how the utilization of the programs and how that fared this year for our kids.
Yes, and we are asking Charles Bergoda, he can put together a video that we then can send the committee members so he can speak in his own voice. But this is a document that he put together, which is similar, I think, to the document he put together last year. Just indicating that we had at least, well, we had 1,413 children registered for at least one activity. 27% were non-residents. Of that, 266 were from Perrysburg Township, 35 from Toledo, 15 from Maumee.
I can give you some positive feedback from my daughter who loved Harry Potter Hour.
Oh, there you go.
I've heard way too much about, I don't know anything about it, but I'm probably one of the few people my age that never read any of them, but
Good books. And then he wanted to let us know that the revenue was up from 2019. He wasn't using 2020 we didn't really have a program, and last year's program was still on a limited basis, so he wanted to go back to 2019 for comparison purposes. So revenue was up, expenses were down. They found ways to make the programs more efficient and utilize staffing in a different fashion to still get the programs delivered.
how was the new registration software used? This was the first year using
This
it.
was the first year, it went very well. They like it. And we're gonna continue to explore, once we get our financial software up and running live October 1st. Then some of us are gonna get together come this winter and look to see how we can utilize Rec Desk and push that out to other areas where we do rentals, whether it be the shower building, garden plots, kayak rentals, et cetera, to help make that a more efficient process.
I'm actually surprised to see 108 kids in the Lego because my son did that, and I don't remember seeing 108 there. So I guess it shows that people come and go as they please.
And yes, at least they were signed up, they at least signed up, register, and pay.
But there were still quite a few. There was probably like 60 or 70 kids there.
And you'll note that, hours worked by staff are down because they have found some more efficient ways to produce the programs and interact with the children.
Are they having any staffing issues?
No, actually, the summer rec program is one of the few areas of staffing where we usually have a great return from the crew from the year before.
Is it primarily high school kids? Or?
Yes, primarily Perrysburg High School kids that are really enthusiastic about working with children, so we usually get a very good rate of return.
Nice. What is pay for them?
I think they are close to $17 an hour.
Okay.
I would have been too.
Well, shit, like, it's at $17 an hour, a lot different than it was.
Exactly.
But
You are not kidding, Councilman. And then he did want to note that they're looking to add some some new items and retiring a few others due to low attendance. And so they do evaluate this, both Charles and Josh, who is his psychic. And so they do take a look at the numbers and participation and are constantly refining. And they also, I think, hear from parents and or children about, what about this, what about that? Have you thought about this? And so they take all of that in consideration when they start forming next year's program. And then he just attached every single program item and the age range for that program and the number that were enrolled in that particular program.
So think of a program, and I know that he's not here to talk about this. How late can we do these? Out of curiosity first, and then my thought behind the program was more of an astronomy on certain days during the summer to bring out telescopes.
I don't know that we're limited by time of day.
Is it more just the parks?
It's probably, some of it could be a little bit parks, but also could be maybe limitation on staff willingness to.
Okay.
But that's something I can ask.
So I think that would be something that'd be interesting to have an astronomy type of an event where bringing a telescope out, showing kids playing.
I know what the planetarium occasionally at UT has evening.
BG has
Yes.
something similar as well.
No, I will pose that question to him and have him and Josh explore that.
That, and then I'm looking for, do we have an e-gaming class?
They would.
Like a,
Video game?
yeah, video
No,
gaming.
that would be it.
Games and
Because I know
ones.
we have it at our, specifically Lyman, it's, believe it or not, sport of the future. But we have Perrysburg High School, I think, is
Yeah, they
known
do.
for their esports team.
Yeah,
Because I think
colleges
they're
have-
back-to-back Smash Brothers state champions or something like that. But I mean, I think about my son and it's,
I will ask that question as well.
okay.
Because it could be encrypted in one of these things. And I'm not-
And I see
Well, I think
coding
the problem would
in
be
there.
the cost to actually implement that, something like that. too.
Correct, that could be a
Yeah,
challenge.
I would just love to see us embrace that because I think we could, and I don't know if
Dungeons
it's.
and Dragons.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's a little bit.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily gonna be a summer program or
Well,
something the
because
library can take on or,
My kids have a Switch.
Yeah.
If you have something where they all come together with their own Switches, you can play games together on a local network with other kids.
yeah, and I don't know how the high school handles the network component of making sure they're not engaging in dialogue. They
No,
should
no,
necessarily be
that would
engaging
hold
in it.
that.
But I would like to see the city somehow promote, because that is big with the kids.
I will
It's-
ask him to explore
You gotta
that.
be careful on what types of games.
Well, exactly, and I mean, that's, I think, why they do Smash Brothers, but
Call of Duty or something.
my son is on Minecraft building stuff, which,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's his creative outlet, so, and I try to embrace that, as frustrating as screen time can
There was
be.
about Roblox or something.
Roblox is like a search engine for creators to put on their own games, and there can be some that are violent, some that are very kid-friendly.
So it's almost like,
Well, I mean, you can, I'm sure your kids are choosing the right games. Jeff.
yeah, I'm sure.
But it's something I would like to see us promote because it's definitely,
A creative outlet.
it's a creative outlet, and you look at the statistics and they're saying, one that I found crazy was that if you're 21 or under, you're way more likely to watch an online e-gaming competition than you are an NFL game, which I thought was shocking. But that's the way things are going, so. Let's set our kids up to get some e-gaming scholarships, because the universities are embracing it too.
They definitely are. I've heard something on a radio show on that.
Yeah.
But no, I think that utilization of this has been fairly strong from what I've seen on here. And I think Long Meeting dropped theirs a few years ago.
I don't know, I would have to ask our finance director, because she would know that answer.
And I remember as a kid myself with these programs, I signed up. Actually, I'm kind of over with the running club because I did the running club every year. And things like that I think these kids look forward to in the summer something to do.
And I think it'll flow right into, I mean, there's so many kids active. I know that a lot of the elementaries are doing cross country and stuff like that now too, so it'll feed right into
My
the
son
school
does
year.
cross country through St. Rose.
Yeah.
He's there right now. Actually, he's probably just finished.
My son just finished his.
So, Bridget, I'm kind of curious about the managerial structure of this. I mean, does it fall under service?
Yes. Yes.
And so does does the director report directly to Rob?
Yes.
And so what does the structure of the rec group look like?
So the recreation director is Charles Brigode, and his assistant director is Josh, and I can't remember Josh's last name. And then from there, those two are the ones that do all the hiring of the summer rec children with the assistance of HR. And they'll work over the winter putting together programs, doing the final selection of what's going to stay, what's going to go, what can we add. And then they'll work out what that program's going to look like and the amount of staffing needed and how many participants they think can be managed with that amount of supervision. So it's really two people who are the brainchild of all
So
of those.
are those two people educators and they're available in the summer? Or
Yes, they both happen to be educators.
So they're not city employees?
Correct.
Except during this particular.
Yes, they're considered a seasonal employee. They actually work, I want to say that it really starts picking up in January, February. They spend some time finalizing everything. This particular year, since we were putting things online and using a different process, we started a little bit earlier than normal because they interface with our IT department. But yeah, they spend a considerable amount of time in the winter so that they're ready to go to recruit the students that will come in and help run the programs, because that takes a couple months to iron out. And then they'll finalize all the programming details and build what is now in RecDesk and get ready for open enrollment.
Approximately how many seasonal employees does the city?
For the recreation.
For the
program,
recreation.
I bet it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 20. And they're not working like full-time during the summer. They'll pick and choose. Each will do so many activities a week. And it's not like an 8-hour day necessarily, but they'll come in for certain programs throughout the course of the week. But I could probably get you a better understanding of that. And maybe what I can ask Charles to do is indicate, maybe drop in another column or two indicating the amount of staff people that it takes to manage that program and the duration of the program. Because some of them last a week, some of them last multiple weeks, some are every day, some are only certain days of the week. So they map all of that out.
Well, so when they're interviewed, some of these, you need a little bit of skill and knowledge.
Yes.
Most of them, frankly. So that's those 20.
And some we actually subcontract out, believe it or not, like the glass making. So we'll work with a local studio and the registration fee will actually we'll actually write a check then to that provider. We'll actually bring in all the glass making kit and do the demonstration and work with the children that are in that program. So some of it's in-house and then some of it we do partner up to specialists.
Thank you.
But I can see if you can add some columns here.
See how many staff the kids would be, I think, kind of a good metric.
And hopefully we can have them come and give a presentation before the whole program starts as well again.
That'd be nice, and then they can talk about the upcoming program and the additions that they've made.
I'd love to hear from them too on that, so maybe we get them to come in
In the
February,
spring? Okay.
March. Give them plenty of time.
Give them a big thank you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of planning and coordinating.
Those teachers are saying.
It's an important part of what the city does.
I agree.
Well, this is our, probably our number one engagement, I would think.
As you recall, during 2020, there was a lot of very upset children and parents. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that the outlet there is not.
That's why everybody put in a pool, right? So all those pools going in
It wasn't-
2021 and 2022.
So, but no, I thank you very much for the information. I think this is great for us to discuss and to see. Is there anything else for the good of the Recreation Committee?
Real quick, since we talked about dog parks, I thought I saw this, the animal control officer that's being discussed in safety, is my understanding.
Correct.
It will be at our next meeting.
Okay, and what, are you guys before us or?
It's always before we record.
It's always, well, because I was thinking personnel too, I wouldn't mind hearing,
Of course, that's coming from Patrick.
yeah, so I'm just kind of here, I want to make sure it was being addressed because I know there's been some concerns there.
Yes, he's
And then we're
putting
talking about
together a
dog parks.
document that he will be sharing with the safety committee, and then that evening or the next morning, I can certainly push it out to all the city council.
Yeah, I just, as personnel, I kind of wanted to be informed on what's going on there as well.
So the position was never limited, it was just,
was-
not hired, or not filled, I should
The
say.
classification is still there because it's a collective bargaining unit position, but there is no funding for it. That funding was reallocated to, I believe, help fund the second SRO, if I'm not
Yeah, I
mistaken.
think you're right on that.
If I'm not
That's the school
mistaken.
resource officer.
Yeah, it's
For
better.
those who don't know, that's our list.
Yes, wait a minute, so school resource officer, but that's through the school, so isn't that a different budget than the city's budget?
No, it is actually, the school resource officer does not spend the entire year in the schools.
Oh.
For the portion of the year that they are in the school reimburses the city.
Got it.
And then for the portion that they're not in the school during the school year, the summer, then they are doing other city functions, out on road patrol, assisting the detectives, manning the front desk, et cetera.
Over the front leash dogs.
I just wanted to make sure, since we were talking about dogs tonight, I saw it on safety's agenda, but it would be awesome if we got an update on personnel, it can be very brief.
What did you say about an animal control officer?
It's going to be discussed at the safety committee meeting. They're going to have a conversation.
As to whether you're going to get one?
Yeah, when Jeff Studer retired, the position no longer was, and there's been some suggestions that maybe we need to re-examine that decision.
And when's the safety committee meeting?
It's the 27th.
Be the two Tuesdays from now.
Fourth Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is that when you meet on the?
Personnel, I think we meet right before you.
So the 27th at 6:30?
6 o'clock.
Oh, okay. 27th at 6 o'clock. That'll be
So maybe
discussed.
I'll just stay after, would make sense.
Uh-huh. All right, there's no other business and no objections. We will adjourn.